Hi, and welcome to Screams in Focus, our special Halloween series from Screens in Focus. I'm Diana, and today we are talking about how horror has changed throughout all the years. We're going to talk about classics and modern horror. Sam is here to join me. Hi, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited that you're here. I just can't wait to dig into all of this, but I do want to start with our question of the day, which I want you to think about, Sam, and our friends out there. I would love to know, what is your favorite horror movie ever? Like, what just really scares you? What really resonates with you? You can leave us a comment here on YouTube, on social media. You can even call us at 669-223-8542, and you could find yourself on Screens in Focus. So we would love to hear from you. All right, Sam and I are going to answer that question a little bit later on. But Sam, I think what I really want to know is what horrors really impacted you that you remember from your youth or growing up?
So I'm a child of like the 90s. So my like top three movies I can remember being a kid. I love Hocus Pocus, Halloween Town, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. And I think all of those are, I've watched them as an adult. I feel like Hocus Pocus is one that I watch yearly, sometimes twice a year, depending on like how I'm, if I'm in the mood or not. There's something just so like, they're movies for kids, but it's also there's adult things, so like you can like enjoy it. And I remember we saw Hocus Pocus in like movie theater here in Pittsburgh, and I almost like I was ready to go after a guy because he was like talking during Hocus Pocus, and I want to be like, "Sir, you can go. Like, get out." Because he wasn't
making talking.
No,
I'm sorry, you can't be talking in the movie theater.
And I feel like his comments were like it was just like his first time watching it, like his partner had dragged him there. Oh, so annoying. But then I did get a little bit older, and so a lot of these movies I think have really like shaped me in some way or another, I guess. But like I grew up watching Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, The Blair Witch Project, The Sixth Sense, and Sleepy Hollow. And I feel like a lot of those are very like slashery and like maybe are why I'm so paranoid today. But like I watch I Know What You Did Last Summer probably every other year or something. That's like not, I mean, I've also read the book. There's just something about just, I don't know, like maybe I went to North Carolina when I was a kid. So like I just associated like, I think it was filmed in North Carolina, but it's just like so like spooky and just like, and it's real. It's not real, but like that's just a dude. And I think that
feels real.
It feels real because like you can piss off some Joe Schmo down the street and he can come after you, you know?
Yeah.
And then like getting a little bit older now, getting into like the like 2000s horror, which like I love 28 Days Later, Final Destination, Paranormal Activity, The Descent, The Grudge, The Ring. And I'm not really sure like which one of those might be like my like top, but I feel like I watch The Descent every year and it's so scary and just, I mean, I'm already afraid of nature, so like that just like that's like a nail in the coffin for me. Like I'm not going to go hiking in North Carolina. And that one also just like I don't know, it's like you root for the girls, like you want them to get out because they're besties and something tragic happened to them and they want to get together and then all hell breaks loose. So good though.
Do you know, I haven't seen that one. I have not seen The Descent. I was
good.
Yeah, so I might have to tune in, but yeah, as you were listening, I'm like, yeah. I'm like, wait a minute.
That one. So I'm also claustrophobic. Like I don't like tight spaces. And that one, some of the horror is just like them like spelunking in these tiny little crevices. And you think like, I think I'd rather get killed by the creatures than get stuck. Like that's like because at least that might be quick.
Well, I love that because it's not just one, there's fear in these other parts of it, right? It's not just the monster is from what I gather from this film that's chasing you. It's something else that's in there. that
Mhm.
is scaring you, which
Yeah.
I love, right? Because I like it better when it's more than just like the slasher films.
Mhm.
I watch them. I grew up on a lot of those. I watch them because that's what you did back at that time. But are they my favorite ones? Probably not. And for me, I want to go back just a little bit further. These were before my time, but that was what was on TV when I was watching was Hitchcock, Alfred Hitchcock. And so I would watch these movies. And in particular, I want to bring up The Birds because I watched it when I was young. And I remember the birds pecking, like you'd see the guy with his eyes pecked out. You're like, oh my God. That is so, as a kid, that's super scary. But I think as I've grown up in looking back at that, because I saw the movie not that long ago,
Mhm.
and I had just a new appreciation for it, like because I saw it from a different lens. And that lens was more of how it was filmed, the suspense, the point of view from the camera, that not everything needed words.
Mhm.
There are parts in it when that I didn't notice, of course, initially when I was a kid watching it. I didn't, I just watched it. But again, as an adult, when the Tippi Hedren, who plays the lead in this, she gets on a boat and she goes across the bay there. It's filmed in San Francisco, Bodega Bay,
Oh, I didn't
and
know
also
that.
believe, yeah, I believe Warner Studios also. Yeah, it's San Francisco and Bodega
So it's
Bay.
like real close to you then.
Yes, yes, it is. And so you're like, oh my God, be careful of the birds,
Mhm.
which I do. I was going to get to that, which I do sort of freak out when there's a lot of birds
Oh.
in one area.
Mm-mm.
I'm like, what's happening? There's too many birds there. And it does. So it has impacted me because I'm still thinking about that. But again, the birds isn't like so scary that, you think you're going to die, but it's such a suspense. And that's what Alfred Hitchcock was so great about, was that you had this point of view of this person and what they're experiencing. And even in the conversations with her and another person, the way they would talk with each other, I don't know. It was just so great. I can see why his films have held up
Mhm.
through all these years because they're so good. And I do want to talk about Psycho a little bit because, that's considered one of his super, you know, big famous
Mhm.
ones. There's so many. He's made so many that are so good. Rear Window and just so many others. Vertigo. But with Psycho, and have you seen very many Hitchcock movies yourself?
Mm-mm. So I've seen parts of The Birds, but I was really young and I'm terrified of
Yeah.
birds now. And I think
Oh,
that was like a goof 'em up on my parents' part. Although we watched plenty of
yeah.
like worse movies and I'm not
Yeah.
that messed up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I also think
Yeah.
so. My aunt had a farm and she had a couple turkeys or whatever. And my brother was like poking them and provoking them and they got out and they chased me. So I think that's ultimately why I'm afraid of birds. But
Ah.
birds, there's nothing behind those eyeballs, like nothing. And that scares me because like most animals you can see like a soul or something, there's something behind there, but birds
Yeah.
are just like,
Yeah.
mm-mm, no ma'am. Mm-mm.
You're like,
uh-uh.
oh
That
my
all that
gosh.
being
Yeah.
said though, I really, really want like a corvid to be like my friend. Because I feel like
Yeah.
they're just so like smart. But then I also just want to get on their good side because, they still don't have much behind the eyes. I had a film class in college where we must have done like a Hitchcock like month or something because that's the only reason why I really would have watched
Ah.
them. Not because I just don't, they're not on my radar.
Right.
You know
It
what I
just
mean?
doesn't come to mind for you.
Yeah.
If you make it a point to do it, it's pretty fun. That my husband and I went through a series at one time where we decided we were just going to watch. This is back when when Blockbuster was a place that you went,
Mm-hmm.
and we would rent movies every Saturday evening and watch one. And so we went through a lot of them watching them. But I had seen already The Birds on TV and I had already seen Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about Psycho, why you should give it a
Okay.
shot, like just do a spooky night, especially during Halloween, where you just watch it because it has a lot to say. And what's cool, not cool, but Janet Leigh is the actor in it, and Janet Leigh is Jamie Lee Curtis's mom, just
Mhm.
so you know that. But anyway, she is a woman, and I'm not giving anything away by saying this for anyone else that hasn't seen this, but she steals money and she has it in a suitcase. And so this is going on, and this is why she ends up at this Bates Motel,
Mhm.
is because she's running away. And so you have this real situation happening to this woman
Mhm.
who happens upon this place, which has a big effect on her. It just adds to it.
Mhm.
And also in preparing for the podcast, I did a little bit more research about what the movies meant and Hitchcock's
Mhm.
style. It was talking about like the 60s and the sexual revolution and the censorship and the mental instability. Those are the themes that happen in this movie, which I hadn't thought about. Because when
Mhm.
you go to watch a horror, you're just watching the horror movie. You don't think about what that director, what that filmmaker was thinking when he made this. He was really pushing the boundaries. But to know now that Alfred Hitchcock was really stepping out and saying something to the world with this film makes it all the more impactful, which I think is just a cool thing, especially in horror, because sometimes you think, oh, they're just trying to scare us in this film.
Mhm.
But there's also so much else said in the films. And he's just a master of suspense. Directors and filmmakers do take a lot from Alfred Hitchcock and other horror filmmakers that came before
Mhm.
them. I just want to briefly mention Rosemary's Baby because I remember watching this as a young person, being scared out of my mind because there's this pregnant woman and it has to deal with the devil. I don't know if you've ever seen it because it's a really old film, also. And they're doing
Like a it's like a prequel, right?
a prequel, I
Mhm.
think. I believe so. Is it with Jennifer
Julia Garner.
Julia Garner,
Mhm.
right? Is it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's called 7A,
A.
if I'm
Mhm.
correct. Yeah. So I'm really intrigued. But before you should watch that, you should go watch Rosemary's Baby.
But I think what's nice about like Hitchcock and Rosemary's Baby, just those things, is that the storyline is so you can pop it anywhere. You can pop it. It doesn't have to be in the 60s. It can be today. It's like timeless because like there's always going to be cults. The devil's always a fear.
Yeah.
People are always willing to do stuff to, to further themselves. It's like so like
Yeah.
it's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Which is probably why like
The theme,
people still talk about it. Yeah.
yeah, the themes are great. The only thing I worry sometimes is it depends on the filmmaker. And
Mhm.
if that filmmaker takes enough care in building suspense, and because that's really it. I mean, anybody, not anybody, but what I mean is if you're a filmmaker, you can do jump scares
Mhm.
and you can put out a good looking film. But if you need to be able to create that anxiety and fear in order for it to be next level. So as we're talking about people that have done some great work, I'd love to bring up Stephen King and all his stories. So, one of my favorite movies is Carrie. I really love that movie. Stephen King, so many great movies. Cujo, The Green Mile. Some of them aren't quite as scary or spooky as others, but
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of series and so much more. But I think with Carrie, it just really resonated with me. Sissy Spacek. I was young when I watched it. It started off with this young girl in the shower having her period and not knowing what it was. And then what that meant later on with the relationship that she had with her mother and so forth. So, really, that one had a really big impact on me. Have you seen this one,
I
Sam?
haven't. I've seen the remake just when it came out. It was probably on like HBO and I just happened to watch it. But I feel like Carrie is a movie that is like not it because getting your first period was kind of scary. Like it's a change
Yes.
and to not know anything about it is I can't even imagine like is and oh my god, like as awkward as that talk was, I'd rather have that awkwardness for like 20 minutes than like not understand what's happening with your body.
Well, and it was the fact that it gives me chills as you're saying that, because her mother wasn't a normal mother. You haven't seen this one, so I'm not sure what happens in the remake. I think I saw the remake, but I can't even recall it.
Me either.
But in the original, the mother was like a religious fanatic, and she thought that when that happened, like it was just like the devil basically taking over. That's how I recall it. It was like, oh my God, you have that smell and now there's going to be men around. It's just like, oh my God, she was like crazy. And I think that was the draw, because you had this young teen who didn't know anything. You're like, wait, why doesn't she know? And then you learn of the relationship she has with her mother, and her mother's crazy, and understand why this poor young girl is so odd and an introvert. And then, of course, this great looking guy asks her out to the prom, and she is like, oh my gosh, I get to dress up. I get to be a part of this. And then all of that plays out. And I guess the one thing is toward the end is that, everybody's laughing at her. And that's one of the lines. It's her hearing her mother tell her, everybody's going to laugh at you. Everybody's going to laugh at you. And she keeps seeing that as she's having these telekinetic powers, doing things. But I don't want to ruin it too much for anybody who hasn't seen it, but it's such a great movie and it has stayed with me. So I really appreciate Stephen King's work. And so a lot of his work, so much of his work is so incredible.
I remember watching The Green Mile for because I was like 10 when that movie came out. And it was not that I truly understood much of it, but it was spooky. And then as an adult, it's equally, maybe spooky isn't the right word, but it's like, there's it's very tense, and there is a supernatural element to it. And then you just love John Coffey and that poor mouse and that poor guy. And it's just it's real life horror. Cause that kind of stuff, probably not that the spookiness happened or the supernatural part of it.
I get chills again. So you're giving me chills today, because I'm just like,
it's so
it's really,
he knows how to write, he knows how to write a scene. He knows how to make you feel things. Cause there's, I think you can relate to what makes stories impactful and good is when you can relate to the characters. And I can't relate to a guy in the South in a prison, but I still could feel empathy and understanding that all that kind of stuff. And it's so good. You're gonna make me want to actually probably go watch it soon.
Go watch it. It's so, if I see it on, I will put it on because it's such a good movie. Just like Shawshank Redemption, which isn't horror at all, but is such a great
I've never seen it.
Story.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
My gosh. Okay. I can tell you that it is one of the movies that I've seen so much by accident because it was always on. But when it's always on, I can't help but watch it. It is so well done. So well done. You will I can't imagine anyone that would not like that movie. Yes. I can't even imagine that.
I have no reason for not watching it other than I just haven't watched it. I don't know that I think the ending got spoiled for me, but it's also how old of a movie. So I'm not going to it doesn't really matter. It's still going to be fun to figure out how they got there.
It's still the journey of getting there. Yes. Yes. And just the feel of it, the time of it, and just friendship in prison, and just so much happens. It's so good. It's really well done. But anyway, it's the story, right? People that we're not in prison, we don't know, but we can understand being human, having feelings, having friends, having just all kinds of things. So it's, how you were in high school with Carrie, and, how you in The Green Mile, just seeing this really big man that seems, you could tell he's not a bad person, even though he's, been imprisoned, because we're like, oh, it gets us so, either mad or upset or feeling for somebody. So all of those stories are just so good. So yes, that was one of my then movies. And also Young Frankenstein, I watched as a young person. Anybody can really watch this because it is really quite funny. And I just love Gene Wilder and Peter Boyle as Frankenstein, and just the comedy of it all. So I just think that that's a great movie too. Okay, so let's get to what we watch now. So share with all of us what you watch now in horror.
I feel like a lot of what I'm watching in horror, they're like remakes of the original or movies picking up like 20 years later. Like I feel like in the last 6 years, I've seen like that, like the first Halloween remake. No, it's longer than that. It's 7 years because it chapter one comes out in 2017, and then two comes out in 2019. And then you have the Halloween ones, which I've seen the first remake, then the second, and then there's a Scream reboots and Dawn of the Dead, which is an old movie that's like 20 years old.
Yeah.
But that one is so good. I honestly, and maybe not embarrassingly, but I saw the Dawn of the Dead remake before I'd seen the original. Not for any real reason other than it was just a movie that was on. My parents took me to see it. Like it was just in like a theater. And that movie, like I've seen it. I watch it probably like once a year and it still makes me scared. But I have a whole like zombie thing. Like you and I watch The Walking Dead. Like
Yeah.
it's like so creepy, but just being, yeah. But just being able to like, and I don't necessarily think that remakes are better than originals. Sometimes they can just elaborate or make things a little better because of the new technology and different things like that. But yeah, I think out of all of those, probably honestly, my favorite might be the Dawn of the Dead remake. It's just so good because it takes place in a mall. I live in Pittsburgh. I grew up in Pittsburgh. It was filmed in Monroeville originally, so I might feel a bit of a kinship to that. But
Right.
it's just so good. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
Mhm.
And I do really enjoy that one. Yes, that is a really good movie.
Like the fact that there's like a zombie baby is like, what? It's so creepy.
Yeah, that is creepy. I haven't seen it in a while though.
Mhm.
But now you're going to make me want to go watch that again. So we're going to be watching some of these horror movies, rewatching some of
Just
them.
in time for Halloween too.
I know.
And something else that I've been getting really into, it's probably started during the pandemic, but there's a bunch of a YouTube horror, TV shows that my husband and I watch. We started with watching Nuke's Top 5, and it's essentially this guy who gets sent a bunch of like real like ghost videos, and believe or don't believe, it's still scary sometimes because like we like to turn off the lights and to put a candle on, and then we're like, it's all spooky, but
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just really good. And then there's another a YouTuber, her name is Loie Lane, and she does a similar thing, but she'll watch like, she doesn't watch nukes, but she'll watch other like horror creators or horror like a channel, and she'll watch them like with you, which is hilarious because we both have
Oh.
the same reactions to stuff. We're both big like scaredy cats. Like I jump at everything. And then, or she'll kind of collect her own like TikTok videos of people experiencing spooky stuff. And it's just really nice because sometimes they really do scare me or like they make me jump in the moment. It's nice having like a break and she'll like talk about stuff. And it's just, I don't know, but I think like the YouTube is like coming. It's like the new way to watch things, I think. You can watch like TV
Yeah.
on there.
There's too much. I am absolutely loving Jordan Peele. I love the movie Nope. But I do want to step back for a minute and talk about Get Out, because that was such a breakout film for him, because I didn't know him very well before that. I just knew he was part of a comedy team. And so I just think of humor, right? But here he's doing this horror, and we see Get Out, and it's such an amazing film with so much social commentary. And that is what he does with most of his work that we've seen more recently, because then there was Us, which was really well done. And then there was Nope, which I watched that most recently. Those are the horror movies that I've watched most recently. And it's so well done. I love the social commentary on it. I love the themes that he has, like spectacle and media exploitation, and just, how trauma with Stephen Yun, who we both love from The Walking
He's
Dead,
so
in
good.
this. Yeah. And how he is on this TV show with Gordy, the
Chimp.
the chimp. Yeah, I couldn't think of didn't want to say monkey, didn't want to say gorilla. Chimp is a good one. With the chimp and putting that chimp on TV, making it perform, and then, what happens there. And that really is the horror to me. So this whole movie is about, God, I don't want to give too much away if people haven't watched it, but it is considered a science fiction and what it has to do. But the part of the chimp, the real life horror that we see happens. And it's crazy because you have that horror and then you have the science fiction horror happening. So it's just so much in this film that I love it. And I love all the actors in it. Daniel Kaluuya, Keke Palmer is amazing.
Keke Palmer's a queen. And the guy who plays Angel is amazing.
Yes, Brandon Perea, I think
that sounds right.
They're just so good. It's just so well done. It's so unexpected. And it's so entertaining, and yet it's just telling you so much. And you could go back and watch it and pick up on more
Absolutely.
things.
I watched
what people are willing to do to get in the spotlight or get their 15 minutes of fame or whatever it might be.
Something like that, which is like, it makes you question, like, you think to yourself, oh, I wouldn't do that, but I don't know. That's like the real horror of it, is like, you truly don't know what you would do in that situation. But
yeah,
it's funny. I noticed on a rewatch in the last year or so that Rose, whenever her and Chris they're being stopped or they call the police because they hit a deer, or the cops behind them because they hit the deer. I don't remember if they call the cops or whatever, but he starts to be a little racist and kind of asks Chris for his license, and she immediately comes to his defense, which at the time when this first came out, I was like, oh, well, and obviously you don't know she's a bad guy. Right. But you're like, oh, look at her defending him and being like, no, don't be racist. And on my 20th rewatch or whatever, I'm like, no, wait a minute. His name and everything's on that ID. And if this cop takes his information down whenever there's a missing persons report, they're going to be able to be like, wait a second, we saw him. And it's going to start to cause problems for them, which is so diabolical, and something wow, that is so I got chills just talking about it.
Yeah. I love that when you can piece that together and it's revealed, right? Because first you're thinking, oh, she's being a really nice girlfriend defending her boyfriend. And then later on, you're right. It's very diabolical because she's really not. She's trying to make sure his information doesn't get out. Crazy. I love that. I don't know if I would have picked that up, but that's great that you did.
And it's funny too, when A Get Out was first, when they had all the promotional stuff and all that, I didn't know what to expect, which is always kind of a good way to go into something. I never would have expected what they're doing to be happening. I don't want to give anything away because it's kind of a big thing, but my gosh, it's just so good. And the fact that I can still watch it over and over again and not be bored is so just... Oh, I love Jordan Peele.
Yeah, that's what I do with Nope. I can watch it over and over again and not be bored.
I'm definitely going to be watching that when October hits, because I've only watched it once, not for any real reason, just other things. I also think it's, I don't know. I think it maybe was creeped out by the monkey, and then I was like, I don't want to think about that because that's real life.
I know. That is, I said that's the horror part of it. That was the scariest part.
Absolutely.
Everything else was just tense.
I'm like, oh, I can deal with that.
Suspenseful.
Oh, like an alien, fine. But a monkey, no way.
Yeah. So, because we can not relatable, but that could happen.
It has happened.
That has happened. Well, I know exactly.
We'll get into it later.
It has happened. Yes. All right. I just want to briefly mention M. Night Shyamalan because he is a great horror filmmaker with The Sixth Sense and The Village and Signs and just all. They're so good. And I watch everything that he puts out and I enjoy it. And I know some of it isn't regarded as well as those ones are, but I still like it. I liked Old.
I thought it was, I never would have guessed the twist, which is, I think, I'm really good at figuring out twists. So if I can't figure it out, I'm like, this is a good movie. Not that's a good movie, but I had a good time watching it.
Yeah. So those are really good movies. And then I do also want to mention Stranger Things, which
Mhm.
I really love this series. It's so good because it brings in this 80s nostalgia. It has 80s tropes. And then it's also, it kind of brings you back to that, but also adds on by having the upside down
Mhm.
as this extended storyline. So I love that it can give you the nostalgia, but also give you the current too. And I just love everybody in it, all the characters.
Mhm.
I love that kids, well, I call them kids. Of course, they've grown
They're like
up now.
adults
They're
now, but yeah,
teens.
but they were kids.
But yeah, but they are saving the world and the world doesn't know it. And they are so smart. I love that they're smart and they're able to put things together. It
Mhm.
just, I love it. I think that that's great. And that this series also mixes the genres of sci-fi and adventure and coming of age as we see these young people grow up. So, and friendship and bravery and all of that. So go watch Stranger Things if you haven't seen it yet.
Oh no, we're probably gonna do like a rewatch for like whenever it comes out
Yeah.
next year, I think.
Yeah.
But it's really funny too, because like you brought up like how they're really smart, but they are like kids or, teenagers. And you're not really kind of forget about that until they do something kind of like quote unquote dumb. I'd be like, oh no, they're like 15. What were you doing at 15? Like you certainly wouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But it
yeah,
is
yeah.
like it's
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. They do things that they would at their age, but then also they're able to
Mhm.
figure things out that maybe adults can't, or just see
Adults
it from
wouldn't
a different
believe, and I
perspective.
think that's like
Right.
but yeah, there are some moments where like it's like, scary. They're in the upside down and there's like the demo dogs or
Oh,
whenever like poor Barb, she got
oh
and
yeah.
like that was genuinely creepy and like you felt so bad for her and then if you listen if you're like me and you put on your subtitles, it'll be like squelching and I'm like, "Oh, that's not a good sound."
You know what I love about subtitles is that it'll bring up a description of what you're hearing. And I would have never known how to describe what I'm hearing.
Mm-mm.
Like you just said, like squelching, or
Mhm.
it'll say something. I'm like,
Or
oh,
chittering's one that I
that's,
see a lot.
yeah. I thought, ooh, that's so cool that they have all these words and know what words to bring up to describe it. All right.
Which I
Sorry,
think
that
is
was a
great because
side
it
note.
helps like a lot of like if you have like an impairment of some sort, it's nice to be like not just like
Yeah.
wet noises. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be if somebody hired me to do that, that would be my description. I wouldn't be as a wealth of words as these people that do it. All right. So we've talked about what we watched when we were kids. We talked about what we watch now. And there's so much more.
Mhm.
There's so much more to explore. We watch a lot of things, but we can only touch on so many right now. But with that, we've seen some advances and we've seen things that have made horror even better, or can make horror even better, even though there are some really good classics that you just can't touch and they're
Mhm.
just so good. It's like, just leave them alone because they're just good as they are. But with that, I have seen like practical effects change because in, again, older movies, they would use puppets and makeup and costumes and such. And now they use CGI
Mhm.
and they can make something quicker and detailed. I'm thinking of like Alien or something
Yeah.
like that. You know, how detailed they can make things and how fast they can make them. They can make those fast zombies. Because if you were doing it previously, like in Night of the Living Dead, there are people walking. So that's
Mhm.
as fast as they're going to get. But here with CGI, you can see the difference where they're running. So it's like, it's kind of crazy where we've come with technology.
Mhm. It's like them being able to make like a more elaborate monster is like it's so much scarier because
Yeah.
like when you're like a little kid and you hear a description or your imagination is going to run wild with it and then you see it on screen you're like oh no that's like worse than what I could ever imagine and I don't think they
Yeah.
could do that without the help of like CGI and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've done it with even we've seen that even with the remakes, like you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about. There's a lot of movies that you saw when you were younger and then, or you didn't see, but you know they exist and then you watch them now. And there is a difference in that. And sometimes I do prefer the older ones. Sometimes the suspense is scarier to me,
Mm-hmm.
but then sometimes it is scarier. It just depends on what it is. We have seen a lot of advancements, which were very cool. And like The Exorcist with the rotating heads
Mm-hmm.
and how they use shadows and light and dark and everything. And so now they have a new Exorcist and, you know, they are able to use the different effects
Mm-hmm.
in order to get the same, well, I don't know if it's the same, but a different feel for it.
Mm-hmm.
And audiences expect that, right?
Yeah.
Because now when you go, you're expecting more because you know they can do more. So unless a movie is set back in time, you're expecting it to look and feel differently
Yeah.
because of all the advancements in technology.
But yeah, Mike Flanagan, he's tapped to do another like Exorcist project, which is very exciting. 'Cause I'll watch anything
Wow.
he does.
Stay tuned for Mike Flanagan episode. Okay, so let's get to our question of the day
Sure.
that we posed at the top of this episode. What is your all-time favorite horror movie? I know that's hard, but thinking about everything we just talked about, does that help you narrow it down? What do you think?
Um, mm, no, not really. I think it just made me love the movies that we have talked about even more. But I guess if I had to pick, can I pick two?
Sure.
All right,
I'm
I'm gonna
picking two.
do one that is just like I love Hocus Pocus. I watch it every year. I've seen it in theaters. It's one of those movies that it's so nostalgic for me and it brings back I have such fond memories as a kid watching it with my brother, my parents, and then like as an adult, I watched it with my husband. We watched it with like a niece. And it's just so good. And then I think for like an actual scary movie, man, Paranormal Activity really gets to me, all of them. I think as just like a whole there, because like it's like something you can't see, and there's always the fear of like the devil and conjuring something and the
Yeah.
unknown. So that one, I won't watch that alone, and if I do, the lights are on.
No.
It'll be during the middle of
Yeah.
the day. How about you?
I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I have two also. So the first one is Carrie because it had such an impact on me. It's something I could watch. I just think it's a really great film, very great for horror. And I'm a fan of that one. And also, I'm sorry, I was just thinking to myself, it had so many great actors in it
Mhm.
too. I mean, it had John Travolta. I think that might have been one of the first roles he did. It
Mhm.
has Nancy Allen, Amy Irving. It has so many great actresses, Piper Laurie. So it's really, Betty Buckley
Mhm.
is her counselor. So many great people in it. So I
Mhm.
really, really love Carrie. If you haven't seen the original, please go watch it. And I have to say nope for
Mhm.
my current one, because again, like I mentioned earlier, I could just watch it right now and
Mhm.
put it on. I'd be like sitting there and, engulfed in it, just so sucked in to watch it. So yeah, those are my favorites. Anyway, friends out there, what is your favorite horror movie of all time? We would love to know. You can reach us through social media, or you could even give us a call at 669-223-8542 because we want to know what your favorite horror movie is. All right. So we are at our Fresh Screams segment. So we're going to give our latest TV and movie recommendations. So, Sam, what have you been watching or what are you anticipating?
So I'm very excited to watch Unsolved Mysteries Volume 5, which comes out, I think it's on like the 2nd of October. I love Unsolved Mysteries. I watched the old show growing up, and I was so pumped when they released like the new ones a couple years ago. Like they're just wonderful and they're spooky and they bring light to some cases which need to be handled, but so good. And then I recently just watched A Quiet Place Day 1 with Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn, and it was like phenomenal. It's so tense. I've always wanted like a post-apocalyptic, like day one type movie. So this was like right up my alley. I was in like no matter who was in it, and then you pop Lupita Nyong'o in, and I'm like sold. It's so good. You feel things, like, I cried at one point, like and it's
Mhm.
genuinely scary and, like oh, I'm thinking of one, so I'm not gonna say anything, but it's so tense, and it's like I held my breath, like, it was so, so good. But then I knew we were gonna be talking about Nope, so I wanted to talk about Chimp Crazy on HBO, which talks about real life people who own chimpanzees and other primates and exotic animals, and they talk about Charla Nash, who is the famous person who his name was Travis, and it's just like a different type of horror because it's real life
Right.
and these people are bonkers and don't see what they're doing as like so dangerous and unnecessary and like
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I would never like I go to that zoo and I'm like that glass is not thick enough. Like not happy y'all are here, but like mm-mm, don't so scary.
I I love chimps. I mean, I love them, but there just shouldn't be pets. That's
Mm-mm.
what it is. I love seeing them, but I just yeah, you can't put them in they're not
They're
domesticated. It's not like
wild.
a cat or a dog.
Mm-mm.
You're just and yeah, and I feel like these people are we could get into
Yeah,
it, but I don't that's a different
it's a different
episode.
podcast.
But I saw a couple of episodes, so I am aware of it. I it's not something that I like to watch. And I do want to say about A Quiet Place Day
Mhm.
1, that is so good. I saw that movie at the theaters and I really, really enjoyed that movie. I thought it was so great. I was much more than I expected. And I think it was the relationship between the two leads.
Mhm.
It was just so good. It was this friendship. It was this deep caring of another person. I liked their stories. And at the same time, it's very scary. You take these two people, these two characters, and then you drop them into this horror film,
Mhm.
and that is so scary. And so you're feeling for them. It's just like how we feel about The Walking Dead, right?
Mhm.
Because we feel for these characters that we've come to know, and then you drop them into this environment where zombies are going to eat you. You
Mhm.
don't, if they get to you. So it was a really good movie. And I didn't realize it was Joseph Quinn until the credits rolled. Was watching this guy and I'm like, I like him so much.
Mhm.
His eyes are so like warm,
Yep.
like he seemed something. And then when his name, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I'm
Eddie.
seeing him as Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie with the long hair on
Mhm.
Stranger Things. So I didn't realize it was him, but I really am eager to see what else he does
Mhm.
because I really liked him as Eddie, and I like him in this. So I'll be curious to see where he goes from
I think
here.
he's gonna be in the new
Uh,
Gladiator movie.
Oh, I think you're right. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to see
I am
that
so
movie.
pumped. That movie, I've seen it like a different
Yeah.
podcast, but I saw that. I remember the day I saw it, we were on vacation in Virginia Beach and it was rainy. So I went to the movies instead. And I remember being like, am I too young for this? I was like 12 or something or 13.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
It's a good
yep.
movie. All right. So I have two recommendations and one thing I'm looking forward to. So the first one is Deliverance on Netflix. This is a movie with Andra Day and Glenn Close. It is a horror. It was surprising. It was scary and it had great performances. And when do you ever say that? I shouldn't say that, but at the same time, when do you ever say that about horror? You say it more in current time.
Mhm.
Not that anybody wasn't good, but it was usually about the story
Mhm.
or the horror aspect of it. That's what people concentrated
Yep.
on. And I think now that people are starting to concentrate on the character development, it just makes and just learning, we see these performances that are so well done. And this Deliverance with Andre Day and Glenn Close, it's a highly dysfunctional family that deals with abuse
Mhm.
and drugs and alcohol and cancer. And so you throw all this in with a horror film and you are like gripped. So I would recommend this movie. It is based on a true story of a woman in Gary, Indiana.
Mhm. It's the Demon
So
House.
check it out. Yeah, on Netflix.
Mhm.
Okay, so I did watch Beetlejuice 2024, and I'm a fan of the original.
Mhm.
But I didn't go in with expectations. I didn't want to because this was a new movie and I wanted to see it. And it was great. It was fun. It was entertaining. Michael Keaton is so good at this role. I love the introduction of Jenna Ortega. And then also Winona Ryder and Catherine O'Hara are such a delight. They're so good. And I love it that it's about these 3 generations of women.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed it. And the only other thing I wanted to bring up was something that I'm anticipating, and it comes out September 20th. And yes, I know we're releasing this October 1st, but I do want to bring up The Substance,
Mhm.
and it is with Demi Moore. And I'm going to read to you what it says. It says, it's been getting rave reviews on the festival circuit as a body horror with brains to spare. Demi Moore stars as an aptly named Elizabeth Sparkle, a TV personality who is fired and tries a new Fountain of Youth-esque beauty treatment. Social satire and squirms follow in this Be Careful What You Wish For. So I'm looking forward to it. It's been getting good reviews. So
Is it going to be
it's
like
fun.
in theaters, or is it
In theaters.
Okay, perfect.
It's going to be in theaters. So
Nice.
we'll have to see what happens with that one. Okay, friends out there, we would love to hear your watch list. Also, tune in to our next episode on iconic women in horror. We'll also be doing an episode on Flaniverse, Mike Flanagan's World of Horror. And so just stay tuned. We have a lot of spooky TV and movies to share with you. I want to thank you, Sam, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a blast and a joy and a pleasure to be here with you talking about TVs and TV shows and movies and just things that I genuinely enjoy. So thank you always.
I love it. I appreciate you so much. So thank you again. And friends out there, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for joining our Screams in Focus series. And we are grateful you joined us. And we hope something that we said today resonated with you, gave you a smile, maybe gave you the heebie-jeebies. I don't know. But don't forget to subscribe to Screens in Focus at screensinfocus.com. And please share this podcast with a friend. Remember, you can find everything in our show notes. And remember to keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those screens in focus. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.